Hello, welcome to Global Eye. I'm now joined by Ram Singh, Director at Delhi School of Economics and RBI MPC member. Thank you for joining us on the show today. I want to begin by asking you, Professor Singh, that what's the larger impact that you see on India's GDP, economy, India's MSMEs as a result of these 50% tariffs?
Thank you, Parikshit, for having me on your show. As a result of US tariffs on Indian exports to the US, we are expecting non-trivial impact in terms of its effect on GDP growth and also employment prospects in some sectors. Our exports to US are about $90 billion, and about two-thirds of our exports are going to be hit by these tariffs. In terms of the export loss, we are looking at 20 to 30 billion US dollars of exports loss. That this is the estimate thrown up by several industrial bodies and export houses. This would amount to 0.3 to 0.4% of GDP loss for GDP growth rate loss for us. This will be the direct loss. In addition to this, it's going to have indirect effect on our GDP growth rate. The indirect effect will play out as a result of the tariff imposed by US on other countries, and subsequently its effect on global growth rates. The second channel would be that to the extent several sectors, export-dominated sectors in India are going to be hit by US tariff, to the extent earnings, employment and earnings in those sectors come down, that will have indirect channel effect on demand and GDP growth rates. MSMEs happen to be at the, as you know, that MSMEs are the major driver of our exports. And in the sectors like gem and jewelry, textile, apparel, diamond, fisheries, many units happen to be MSMEs, and therefore, as you said, they are the hardest hit.
All right. Now, when it comes to what kind of policy interventions would be needed to support sectors which are the most impacted, according to you, what are some of the things that the Monetary Policy Committee will have to factor in and do in the coming months?
So, first of all, we should note three things. In such a situation, this is an unusual situation, not entirely unexpected, but certainly unusual. In such a situation, monetary and fiscal authorities will have to work together in tandem, because these tariffs are going to impact not only our GDP growth rate, but also have a direct bearing on inflation. Therefore, there is a case for monetary and fiscal policy coordination. Fortunately, both the monetary policy and fiscal policy fronts have ample firing power, ammunition. We have, in a sense, prepared ourselves for the rainy day. Now, rainy day has arrived, and we need to work to roll out various measures. Some of these measures will have to be sector specific. For example, giving specific concessions to exporters in the sectors that have been hit the hardest. The fiscal incentives could be temporary tax breaks or giving specific concessions, duty drawback enhancements for exporters. It could also be the case of cutting down on the custom duties on import of raw materials temporarily. From monetary policy point of view, the major factors or supporting hand is going to be in the form of providing credit along the lines of guarantee that was provided during COVID era. COVID era monetary interventions and fiscal interventions were self-limiting, did not harm, did not compromise our fiscal prudence or macro fundamentals. We can take a leaf out of that book and basically do replicate some of the measures we had taken back then to support MSMEs and exporters in this case.
Right. You know, one of the big reforms that is being worked on right now is rate rationalization. That is underway. But if you were to be asked about some certain big bang reform measures which are needed at this juncture, because it is always said that you should not waste a good crisis, what should be done according to you?
So there are three factors that have a direct bearing on prospects of businesses in any country, and specifically for exporters. First set of factors relate to the logistics cost. We have made significant advances on that front. So our logistics costs have come down significantly. They look decent by international comparison also. The second factor is the regulatory cost. And third factor is the financing cost. We need to make significant progress on these two fronts. There have been several interventions, simplification, rationalizations of regulations that impact MSMEs and exporters and business houses in general. Still, a lot more needs to be done. The GST reforms underway are part of that picture. The regulatory burden on MSMEs in terms of land use regulations, in terms of other regulations that they have to comply with, in terms of the clearances that they have to sort and secure before they can start their businesses or start exporting, remain burdensome. The funding cost is also high in India. So our primary channel is through non-banking financial corporations, and that form of intermediaries has its advantage. But the result is that funding costs are very high for exporters and MSMEs and business in general. So we need to make, this is an opportunity, as you said, for us to go beyond GST rationalization. GST rationalization is a significant step forward. It will have direct bearing in boosting demand and also reducing business cost for many businesses. But we need to look beyond in terms of land use regulations, in terms of other regulations, in terms of the ranking, the credit ranking of business corporations, specifically small entities, and in terms of their abilities to borrow directly using the bond market.
Right. Do you feel that the setback in the form of 50% tariffs, is this going to be temporary? And will India tide over it in the next couple of months?
So I have two-dimensional views on this. In the interim, things could get worse for us before they become better, in the sense that now we are talking only about US tariffs, indirect tariffs, because of the Russian oil that we import. Now, the Russian oil import is not going, this issue is not going to stop here. There could be additional restrictions on our imports of Russian oil, either in terms of the changes in the ceiling rate at which Russia can sell its oil, or there could be country-specific quotas that can have bearing on our import oil and therefore on inflation, also growth. But I feel that everything considered, if we have horizon of, let's say, 6 months to 1 year and beyond now, this is a crisis. If we use this as an opportunity, we can overcome not only the setback, which in my view is temporary, but we can emerge with a better house in better order. Our economy can emerge stronger in final analysis.
Right. Of course, there is an impact on India's growth in terms of the GDP, in terms of export growth as well. But if you were to be asked about inflationary risk, especially if we have to stop buying Russian oil, which for the moment India is saying we are not going to stop, and buy more US oil, buy more oil from other countries, what are the larger inflationary risks that you foresee?
So if we can make an attempt to quantify the inflationary risk. If we assume that the crude oil is going to be costlier by, let's say, $10, according to estimates, it is going to increase inflation from 30 to 40 basis point. So that will be its first order impact. It will have its effect on fiscal deficit also, because government will have to cut down on taxes imposed or adjust administrative prices. But in any case, it's going to have fiscal implications. And the fiscal deficit, in turn, will have impact on inflation. So this scenario, the scenario I just discussed, it's about increase of $10 per barrel of crude. My view is that regardless of what is being talked about in terms of our import of Russian oil, whatever is done by European and Americans on this count is going to be self-limiting for two major reasons. One is that for hypothetical situation, even if we assume that we cut down on most of our purchases of Russian oil, China is likely to pick up some of that.
Right.
That would mean that Chinese demand in international market will come down, and that will have self-limiting impact on oil prices. Other major reason, even more important, is that neither Europe nor US government would want a situation where they have to deal with very high crude, petroleum, diesel, and LPG prices. So the estimate of 10 USD is kind of upper limit in my view. So more likely scenario would be 65, 66 USD per barrel at the cost situation. That's the situation. Increase of $5 to $6 US dollar increase is the very likely scenario that we might have to deal with in next 6 months. Now,
all right, thank you.
But as I mentioned early on, Parikshit, so our monetary, we have ample monetary space and fiscal space to deal with this situation. On fiscal front, our fiscal deficit for this year, for this financial year, is estimated to be 4.4% of GDP. We have enough cushion to absorb this shock and not let it multiply to show up as heightened inflation. On monetary policy, also, we have ample scope. We played it safe in last monetary policy meeting, and we have both the bandwidth and space. RBI also, I want to add that RBI is equipped with enough reserves to make sure that rupee follows a trajectory that is decided by the RBI, and we do not run risk of imported inflation significantly. And very finally,
all right, we've run out of time.
This last 10 seconds,
Professor Ram Singh,
as you know that our inflation trajectory is very, very comfortable in the near future for next 2-3 quarters. So we can take this hit. It's a hit, but we can take it. So.
All right, it's a hit, but we can take it. Thank you so much, Professor Ram Singh, for joining us with those very important views. You're saying that we have enough monetary and fiscal bandwidth to deal with the present situation and absorb it. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Global Eye. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.